Well, welcome to this week's episode of The Dental Guys. I'm Wes, the Dental Guy.
And I'm Jon, the Dental Guy, and it is good to be back, just kind of hitting it. Here we are, past the new year, and I mean, as always, you get a little bit rested, a little bit rejuvenated, and then here we are to the Arctic tundra that is the Southeast right now. We are getting hit hard, but you know what? I like a good winter, Wes. I think it's not all bad.
Yeah, Jon, you know, you and I are not afraid of the outdoors. We've definitely been in situations where we like to rough it, camping,
For sure.
middle of nowhere. We're not afraid of it. We like to hike. We like to fish, canoe, all that stuff. Some of the things that you've done, I've not done, but we love a good challenge. And, Jon, how are your thighs feeling today?
Well, you know, most men don't ask other men that, but today it's appropriate. That's because right. It is true. I did something that I've never done before yesterday. This sounds real bad, but it's actually much less crazy than you think. So I went skiing for the first time.
It's awesome.
And now this sounds really stupid, all right? Because understand where I'm coming from. I grew up on the West Coast on the beach, right? So we were in California. Now, I know there's great skiing in California, but not near where I was. And my parents had never skied before. And so I was like surfing, as cliche as that sounds. And I was not near this stuff. I'd seen snow, but I never grew up with it. And then I went to an undergraduate school, App State, where literally skiing was in my backyard. And everyone else was good at that time. And I didn't want to be that guy who was terrible. And everyone else was sort of babysitting. So I just kind of, a lot of my friends would go, and I was like, nah, it's good, I'm good. So I never learned. And then I think what happened to me, in dental school, we were alphabetical by, last name. And next to me, Margot Robinson, if she's listening to this, hey, Margot, I wish I could hang with you. It's been a while. But Margot sat next to me in preclinical lab. She had never skied or snowboarded. She goes up to Killington, Vermont. This is the beginning of her third year, clinical year, critical time in clinic, right? Pre-clinic, I'm sorry. End of the second year. And first day out, breaks her wrist.
Oh.
First day out, breaks her right wrist. As she comes back to pre-clin, her wrist is blue and black. On her right wrist, that girl, she came in to the backup lab. She learned to prep teeth with her left hand. And she passed pre-clinic to get into clinic. So kudos to Margot. But I remember that leaving a divot in me. I was like, I don't know if I should learn to ski after age like 7, because this seems dangerous. So I like dangerous things. I like going fast. I like things that are risky. And so for me, I finally gave in. My kids are old enough now. One of them's learned to ski. One of them tried snowboarding. Finally, my wife's like, look, let's just go. Let's go. So he went to a somewhat local ski slope about an hour from me. Not super high, not super big. Got a little bit of snow this weekend. So we go up there, about an hour and 15-minute drive, super close. And as a 40-some-year-old person, I'm in the ski school with a bunch of toddlers.
Love it.
Look like a fool. In fact, the toddlers are definitely better than I am. And my kids are loving this. They're like laughing it up at dad. This is great. So get up, finally go down the slope a couple times, the bunny slope a couple times, beef it a couple times, go up the beginner slope, just get destroyed multiple times. Because what happens is it gets in your head, Wes. It gets in your head when you're my age, our age, and you've never done something and you're thinking, I got to use my hands on Monday or Tuesday in this case.
Wrist guards.
Like, it's so stupid, but you're like, because I was never like this, but I'm like, all right, I got to watch out. And then it gets in your head. So anyway, long story short, I'd gone on the beginner slope, like the green, 3 times.
Mm.
And so one of the kids is like, come on, let's go do a blue. And I'm like, a blue's what? Intermediate? They're like, intermediate. So I go up there, way up the lift. Never done this before. The lift is stressful, by the way. Wes, the lift is stressful. The lift comes around. You got to sit down at the right time. That's fine. I can handle it. But when you get to the top, my wife's like, don't fall off the lift. Don't fall right
don't
if you get off the
embarrass
lift.
me.
Don't embarrass me. Exactly.
Don't make them
and you
hit
know
the
what
stop
I did
button.
the
Don't
first
be that
time?
guy.
I freaking fall off the lift, like at the end. I like tangled up like a joker. So anyway,
Humbling.
finally get to the top of the blue slope, and I just look over the side of this, and I'm like, I'm gonna die here. This is it for me.
Yeah,
this is it for me. So I'm like, all right, might as well just go for it. So go down, immediately go super fast because I don't know how to I'm trying to do all the things to slow down. My brain is operating slower than the slope. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're going faster. Your brain's like, okay, got to do this, but you're not really ready. Immediately into the wall. That was good. And then a couple more times of smashing into things. Finally, about a good 50 yards, I literally just scooted. I put my pride aside and I just scooted on my butt down the hill for about 50 yards. And I got back to a place I could do it. Now, by the end of the day, I'm not going to say I'm good at all. I'm like a solid C student in skiing. Like I could make it sort of down the greenish hill. And then the kids are just roasting me, man. They're just but I think part of it is they love that. They're like,
yeah, they're better than dad.
Dad is not good at something. Dad is not good at something. And they love it. They love to just destroy me. And I have to just embrace it. So here I am. I'm going back. I'm going to go back. I'm going to get redemption,
man,
because I think I like it.
I want to go with you. I want to get you there. I like teaching people to ski.
Please,
and,
I need some
I've taught
help.
a lot of people to ski over the years. But yeah, man, ski team in high school, that's me.
Ski team, like on the team?
Yeah.
What'd you do? What were you like competing?
Yeah, you do stuff.
Race against the clock or race against other people?
Yeah. Well, we're not getting into that, but let's just needless to say, I do, all right. And I think Brad does too.
This guy's serious. I should have been surprised.
And Brad is a skier. I've skied with Brad and his children growing up. We would ski, and fantastic. And I do ski with a helmet, and I have skied with wrist guards before. So, you know,
good to know.
Safety,
makes me feel a little better.
On skis, safe on skis. Now, you know, I love skiing. 865-544-8954. Are you a skier? As a dentist, are you a skier? Yeah. I know a lot of you that listen to this show are outdoors people. Yep. And
and I think a lot of dentists, you see some CE for dentists that involve skiing.
Dude, one of the best
you have any great
one of the best CE courses I ever went to was Dent Supply, and I wish they did this again. They put on a phenomenal course out in Telluride. It was incredible. It was on endodontics. It was right after I'd taken Endo Buchanan, and it was incredible. I skied for like 4 days in Telluride, the highest commercial airport. Yeah, we tried flying in there. You couldn't, so we drove from Grand Junction. And it was just incredible. The town of Telluride's amazing. But, I wish Dent Supply, we wish you had some more CE, like destination CE. Like, I love that stuff. Because you had CE in the morning, and then you would be done by like noon. And you hop on the skis, and most of these slopes, they got nighttime lights on a lot of their places. Man, it's amazing because my wife skis. She just got back from skiing yesterday. She's a great skier. She's a Black Diamond girl, and she skis on short skis, She's a trickster, good ice skater, good rollerblader. But skiing, man, I'm proud of you. 865-544-8954. Thanks for listening to Dental Guys tonight. We've got a great show coming up. Brad, the Dental Lab guy's on the show. We're going to talk a little bit about digital dentures. But until then, John, tell us a little bit about our sponsors.
Let's talk about who makes it happen. And one of those people that always has made it happen for us is the Dental Crafters Network. And when you talk about, in the Dental Guys, we've always wanted to mention those who really... They're actually doing what sometimes when you hear podcasts and they just are like, okay, we're going to give you like a little blurb about something. It's something they know nothing about. We know about the Dental Crafters Network, and we know this is the real deal. We work with them every day, and they literally are saving our butts every day.
Long-time sponsor of the Dental Guys podcast, man.
That's right. So built on a foundation of unwavering dedication and respect, The Dental Crafters Network is a family-owned dental laboratory with 30-plus years of history, enriching the customer experience through their core values: responsiveness, versatility, and trust. They collaborate with you to meet your patient's unique needs. Experience the difference and receive 10% off your first case when you tell them the Dental Guys sent you. Call the Dental Crafters Network today at 1-800-472-8302. That's 1-800-472-8302, or visit dentalcrafters.net. Thank you to the Dental Crafters Network for being a longtime sponsor of the Dental Guys.
And by Restorative Driven Implants. Looking to place dental implants in your practice? Look no further than Restorative Driven Implants Educational Institute. We are super excited about this year at Restorative Driven Implants, placing implants on U.S.-based patients, right? In the United States, training based here, over 60 hours of CE. Listen, real-world cases. At Restorative Driven Implants, one of the things that we pride ourselves on is a system, a systematic way of repeatedly doing what you're going to do in your practice. Extractions, healed ridge, immediate extraction, immediate placement, how we put the systems together so that when you go back to your practice, that you can start implementing proven techniques, science-based, calibrated mentors. It's next level training at Restorative Driven Implants. Head over to restorativedrivenimplants.com right now and register for the next core series, 715-207-6587. John.
And also, thank you, big time thank you to Spear Education. We have been involved with Spear Education. Really, it's become the core of the language that we speak in dentistry today. That's the best way I can put it, because there is a language that you can speak when you're planning cases, when you're talking to colleagues, and Spear has literally become the language that we speak on a daily basis in our practice. And Spear, because of the kind of common interest between the Dental Guys and Spear, they're offering 20% off Treatment Planning with Confidence workshop. That is a significant discount on an excellent workshop that literally will, not can, but will change the trajectory of your practice. If you haven't heard about it, listen to our last few shows where we talk about what it's done for our practice. So if you want to get hooked up with that, go over to Spear, check out the Treatment Planning with Confidence workshop, and enter code Dental Guys. That's Dental Guys for 20% off Treatment Planning with Confidence workshop. Thank you to Spear for being a longtime sponsor and partner of the Dental Guys podcast.
John, one of the greatest collaborations that we have ever did on the Dental Guys podcast, and one of the dreams of the Dental Guys over 10 years ago, was to be a part of the Academy of Osseointegration in a bigger way than just attending the meeting. And we want to give a shout out to the Academy tonight for inviting the Dental Guys back to this year's 40th anniversary annual meeting in Seattle. We are super excited. That's March 27th through the 29th. We'll be hosting special speakers there. John, tell us a little bit about some of the lineup. I mean, because we talk about this every year. It's incredible. This meeting every year we kind of like, man, is it going to be good? You know, and some years we've went and we're like surprised. Some of it we're like, it was okay. This is incredible. I'm super pumped about this year in particular.
Yeah, when you start to talk about, I think when we've been to the AO, like you said, Wes, back before we were doing any type of, official meeting coverage, right? And when you start to talk about the AO meeting, we know that many times there have been years where the AO is, I would say, more forward thinking.
Yeah.
In terms of like, hey, innovation, and years where we start to reflect on what we know and more try of calibration. This meeting is both. And you know what? You're going to think, AO pays us $0 to say this stuff. Just so you know, listen to this. We've been involved. We used to do recap shows outside the exhibit halls and we used to just go out and do our own because we're like so passionate about it, right? So here's what's going on. The 40th anniversary meeting, the opening symposium, the keynote speaker is Michael Norton. Now, if you've not listened to this show, you go back and listen to what we talked about when we talked to Michael Norton the last time, what he brought to our podcast about what's changing in manufacturing, what's changing in the industry. It was pretty massive. And then we're going to have Norton kicking it off. Then we're going to have the AO and AAP consensus on peri-implant disease, literally two major organizations giving the report on what we currently think about peri-implantitis. Then we're going to hear from literally, I would say, most of all of the big names in implant dentistry. Point counterpoint, shorter implants compared to grafting, one-time abutments versus not. We're going to have all of the main, I would say, some of the very best in our field giving some of the best lecture topics that I've seen.
You know what's
people
cool?
Like Picos, people like Lyndon Cooper, Georgios Romanos, Weil Ott. I mean, we're going to have the people that you want to hear from, and they're going to be in front of you. And I'll tell you,
Friends of the Dental Guys podcast. I mean, it's awesome that the whole first, Thursday opening meeting that starts at 1:30. And here's what's great about this. You could fly in on Thursday morning and start off with Mike Norton at 1:30. And, he's a friend of the podcast. You all love him. He's definitely a great speaker. Definitely going to throw out some controversial things out there. And then you've got the consensus. Paul Rosen was on the podcast last year. I think it's going to be amazing to hear this consensus. I think, man, Lyndon Cooper. I mean,
then you got somebody we're going to get her on the show this time. She can't dodge us this time. Sonia Lazy is coming up to talk about soft tissue deficiency around implants.
One of the greatest quotes of all time, John, is that surgery's not finished until the prosthetic is placed. Now think about what she said right there. That's confounding the mind even today.
And then to close it up, Marcus Blotz, one of the best, not only in the world of bonding, but also speaking about prosthetic materials and what are the best materials to use on top of our implants.
Let's go.
That's right. I mean, we're going to have unprecedented access to these speakers, and we're going to grill them, and we're going to give them.
We're going to talk about silane at an implant conference. We're going to talk about it.
We better. We're going to talk about exactly what monomer you should be using and how much of it should you use. So
I'm sick of hearing all this
if you've not been to the AO, you must register. If there is a year that you just give up your dates. This is the end of March. Come to Seattle, get a fish thrown at your face, then come to the meeting. It's going to be worth it. But if you don't go to the meeting, at very least, you gotta be in tune with the dental guys for when we are going to be giving you some great content, live content, as well as content we record at the meeting and release afterward.
Next level. Here we go. Listen, I tell you what, the Tonight Show is the show. Let's settle some of this confusion. And I am so glad that we're bringing back on one of our favorite collaborators, the favorite guest. You guys didn't even know who he was. You just saw him as Brad, the dental lab guy. Now, you all know that he is a next level lab owner of the Dental Crafters Network. He's also a master ceramist, and he has, I don't even know how many years of experience. I just know that before he came on the show, I'm going to bring him in right now, is that Brad told us that every time he looks at himself in this podcast, he says like there's more gray hair. Now, I don't know what you're talking about, Brad.
It's just the lighting, guys.
You look great. Is that snow in your hair because of how cold it is? Are you frosted?
17 degrees below zero this morning.
This is ridiculous.
So. Oh,
why?
What's the low tonight? Be honest.
It's actually coming up in temperature now. I think our low the other night was like 20 below. But we're on the increase now.
That's what's happened to your hair. It's froze off.
If I touch it,
it's going to break.
if you hit the positive numbers, that's crazy, right?
Oh man,
it's beautiful. It's beautiful. So
Brad,
here we are. And when you look at the title of the show, obviously, if you tune into the show, there's this thing about digital dentures, and I'm going to act tonight a little bit as the devil's advocate because I happen to have an inside track that Wes Mullins. I love what Wes. I know you have a passion about this, and obviously Brad does. We know, but Brad has a vested interest. Wes has a passion. Okay, Brad has a vested interest. Now let me explain the difference.
Why is my passion higher than Brad's vested interest? If you're watching this on YouTube, it's like a you me type. Did you see that, Brad?
I'll tell you why.
I saw it.
I will tell you why.
What is that?
I'll tell you why.
If I'm offended if I was Brad.
Good. That's fine. But Brad's not offended because he understands the bar he has to deal with is lower than what everybody thinks they can do. Okay?
For sure.
So people come in and they're like, I heard I can make a digital denture. All I got to do is I gotta take a picture and I gotta take a scan and a cone beam CT. And I send it over to Brad and he prints me out a denture and that's the end of the story. That's all she wrote. So, and then Brad's like, now hold on a second. Let's talk about reality. So what I want to try to figure out right now tonight as we're talking, because I know we're talking, and I'm gonna back myself out. I have not and will not, for now, dive into digital dentures. I'm just gonna tell you right now, I'm an old school. We all know if you've listened to this show, I'm the old man.
Brad, we know he's the old man because he was the last one to even do digital intraoral scanning.
Turns out impressions are still better.
So many times, Brad.
Turns out impressions are still better. Turns out impressions are still better for anteriors. And if you tell me I'm wrong, then you're wrong.
Well, I'm
right.
I don't disagree.
You want to make a
with
veneer?
you
Are you scanning for veneers, Wes? You scanning for veneers?
No, I'm not scanning for veneers, and Brad knows it.
Okay, noted. So, what I'm saying is,
we're talking about dentures. We're not talking about veneers, John. Quit trying
I'm just trying
to dodge the subject.
I'm saying there's a balance here, and we're trying to find it. And I like that.
Bring it.
So
I didn't wear my referee shirt here.
No,
Brad, you're on my side, Brad. Let's just go ahead and make that clear right now.
I like
on my side.
No.
I can't pick sides, man. I can't pick sides.
Oh my goodness,
that's a lab tech for you right there.
700
Everybody's fine. We're all fine.
Neutral. It's all good, man. It's all good.
It's all good.
We were ski buddies, Brad. We were juicy fruit ski buddies. Me and you were popping juicy fruit way before John Rogers even had his roller skate training wheels on.
That might be true. I didn't even see a ski until I was like 18. So, okay. So, all right. So Wes, we know that. So if you're a clinician, all right, I want to hear from your side first. Let's get down to these brass tacks. All right.
Yeah.
Wes, you have a passion for great dentures. I've known this since I've known you. You've been interested in dentures. You have taken an interest in what is a great way to do predictable dentures in the analog world. Okay. In the analog world, you perfected. I feel like I will say I got to give a lot of credit to Wes Mullins because I've seen what he does. Literally, the dude has perfected analog denture technique. Okay, I've seen it. I know what he does. I know it's excellent technique. The top of the line he learned from the best. Okay, so I'm going to just brag on Wes for a minute. But when it comes to digital, all right, because it's a very popular topic. There's a lot of people who are like, oh, digital denture sounds great. I remember I went to a lunch and learn with Avident probably 7 or 8 years ago.
Forgot about
okay. That. And they were like, we got this, guys. It's over. Here's the thing. You just put this jig thing in and you do all these things and you can create with one step, maybe two, a fully digital denture. It's all good. Milled base plates, all this stuff. Okay. All right. So that was years ago, 7 or 8 years ago, maybe 5. I don't know, 5 to 8 years. I don't remember the exact time. I didn't go because I was like, I don't believe in that. So what I want you to talk about, Wes, first of all, I want to ask the question, why should anyone do digital dentures versus what you have perfected with analog? Why should anyone change anything?
It starts with diagnosis and treatment planning is where I feel like that the first advantage of digital dentures and digital planning with digital software and what we're able to do with current technologies. And so we know now that dentists still struggle with capturing all the data. And so digital is not going to do certain things, but what it does really well is that it gives us more data for the technician to help the dentist who lacks certain pieces of knowledge to achieve more predictable outcomes. From my discovery in diving into this, really in the past many years, I mean, I had forgot about Avident, man. I mean, that was a long time ago, and I just looked them up. They're still out there, and it's just interesting to me how far things have came. But to me, it's about what we can give the technician. Most dentists don't have a laboratory in their office. It's not a cost thing. It doesn't work. It doesn't fit into their method. They're not doing enough dentures. But when they do a denture, be it immediate or replacing someone's existing denture, I believe the number one reason that we should start implementing digital data is so that the laboratory can help guide and be more predictable in the product that they're going to give to the dentist. Because if I'm not giving certain markings on the face, for instance, not everybody knows that, and if you're looking this on the YouTube, that the distance between my two fingers right here at the zygomatic arch, we know from studies way back when, and Dent Supply TrueBite was a part of adopting this into the TrueBite tooth indicator. And if you just take a caliper, okay, and measure from these 2 points just outside of the occipital area here, okay, and the orbital area, and you do 1/16 of that size, we know that's what 8 and 9 should be for that patient as far as width. And then from there, we know the ratio of the tooth. I mean, we know it. Now, imagine if you didn't gather that data, because not everybody knows these things. But you had the ability with facial scanning, because this is what people are wanting to do. They're buying this stuff, or that gets tossed in. I mean, for goodness sakes, we saw a CT company throwing in facial scanners now for no cost. And so now you have this piece of technology that's sitting on your desk that could take seconds and provide the lab the information that we have all the data that backs up how to choose a tooth for the patient. And so it's
all right. Hold on. Before you go on, I like what you're saying.
There's no passion here at all.
I like what you're saying, but I'm just you've said it about 3 or 4 times, lacking certain knowledge. Okay. Fair enough. Did we not get taught this in dental school? Is there some knowledge that you're talking about right now? Is there some knowledge that you're mentioning right now that we didn't learn in dental school? I'm not talking about, I get what you're saying, facial scanning. We've talked a bit about it. We'll dive into it in a bit, because I want to hear from Brad and what the actual struggles are at the lab.
Yeah, this is where Brad needs to come in. Our dentist coming to the table right now, Brad, with the knowledge to be able to gather the data that you even need.
Yeah, let's talk about why this is something we got to look at. Okay, so what's some of the struggles, Brad?
First, I was just at office today, and this happens quite often. When I bring up the word denture, more and more I'm hearing, yeah, we don't like to do dentures. We just, we don't like to do it. And today I asked, I said, well, why? We don't get paid for all the, the patients coming back in, and, we have to grind on intaglio to get the sore spots. We have to spot the occlusion, and they keep coming back and coming back. And every time I hear those comments, I think that's because we're not getting the information that we need properly to help give a proper fitting denture with proper occlusion, proper setup. It got worse with these digital capture units set out because I think, to Wes's point, it's a capital investment sitting in your office. And I think there's a lot of push from these companies saying, hey, yeah, I can do dentures. Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, we can do this. So they're seeding that to the doctors, and the doctor's thinking, I got a $20,000, $30,000 investment here. I can help pay for it if I streamline this, without realizing that there really is not such thing as a true digital denture in my eyes. What I think digital dentures are, it's taking analog data, good analog data that you have to know what anatomical features to capture, supplying that to the laboratory, and at some point in time, we introduce digital. And so we take analog, meaning physical impressions, base plate bite rims, and we merge that into a digital world along with facial scans or two-dimensional scans. So it's more of a digital world in my eyes on the laboratory side when you say digital denture. And when we introduce that, either the doctor can scan the impression, the doctor can scan base plates and bite rims and send the digital data to us, but it's actually capturing the proper information through old school, what you were taught in dental school, the good records that we need, and you introduce it into the digital workflow, or you send the records to the laboratory and we introduce it to the digital world. So go ahead, Wes.
Yeah, I love it, because what he just said is exactly what the advantages are of this. Is we have the capabilities in the lab to influence the results. And with digital, it's better. That doesn't mean the materials that we're using, but the digital process is better. Okay, so now hear me out on this, is that there are 3 limiting factors to making a denture. The 3 limiting factors, the top limiting factor and the struggles that dentists don't understand is, the first one is they don't establish patient expectations. Now, this is not me talking. This is Dr. Turberfield, which is the technique that I've learned from, and the gentleman that I've learned from, the doctor that practiced forever. And then the second thing that I would say, and here's the interesting thing, is that the number one reason is patient expectations. We're not establishing expectations of what removable prosthetics are for patients. Number 2, because you don't have the knowledge even to talk about it. So number 2, what's the number 2 limiting factor of the success of your dentures in your practice? Is that we don't know how to properly set occlusion. We don't know how to adjust occlusion. We don't know how to capture occlusion bite predictably. And I've seen it so many times, even recently in my own practice with my associate. How do I capture the bite? How do I do this predictably day in and day out? I'm scared to death. Every time I've delivered a denture, I'm grinding in the occlusion. It's frustrating. The occlusion is the number 2. Number 3 problem is that I've lost my train of thought. But let me come back to occlusion for just a second. Occlusion is so important to the success of our prosthetics. And this is an analog thing that cannot be done digitally. It cannot be done digitally. Now, the information may be able to be transferred digitally, but it is an analog thing. You are dealing with analog things. And so I would say that the first thing that we need to start with is, Brad, is that records are still an issue with digital, Brad.
It's back to the basics. I mean, you think about a good quality impression for dentures. The mistakes I see coming in at the laboratory is doctors will use the same impression material they're using for crown and bridge, which, you know, the world we live in, everybody's super fast set stuff, right? You can't do a full arch impression with super fast set impression material. You need a different setting of a material. You also would need a different viscosity of material to capture a good dental impression. And so quite often you're just grabbing crown and bridge material and taking an impression. We see the light body and heavy body, they don't mix well because they're using a super fast set. So I'm missing all the attachments. I'm missing all the muscle features. So it just starts with that, to be honest with you. And there are two materials that, Wes, you use it. You know, you use Ivoclar's, it's an alginate, 2-phase alginate material. So it used to be called System 1, System 2. It escapes me now, Wes. What's the name of it? Accudent. Thank you. Great product. Does an excellent job because you use 2 different viscosity of alginates. Another one I like to see coming in as a medium body impression, and not just a heavy light that just displaces tissue better. So that's the one aspect. Then the whole next thing, Wes, and I know you're gonna back me up on this, but when you request a base plate and bite rim to come back, at Dental Crafters, we make what we call an aesthetic control base. So it's a thinner piece of wax up front that gives you the ability of flexing it out easily for lip support and shaping. Most of the cases that come in, the base plate and bite rim isn't even touched. We send it to the doctor. They put bite reg material on it. They have the patient bite down, and I get it back. That is the point where analog is crucial. You got to spend time on it, base plate and bite rim. Wes and I know you teach this stuff, you know. And if you spend time in that base plate bite rim, set that vertical exactly where you want. Spend some time shaping it. Spend some time looking at the lip line, flexing it out for more lip support, flexing it in for a little less lip support, you know, marking the alia. So I knew center of cuspids, putting the midline and high smile on there and reposed markings on there. Quite often we're not seeing those markings. It just goes out with bite registration material. And then we do a setup, and then I go reset, and we figure it all out into the occlusion side of things. So a little pitch there of just, you know, accurate impression, spend time on base plate and bite rim. That's all analog stuff. If you get those 2 nailed down, and now we can transition into digital dentures where I scan those in, and we use face scanning or 2-dimensional pictures, and we do the setup in the face of the patient. Now you put the patient in the laboratory. Now is where we can start hitting the aesthetics and curve of speed and smile design setup. But just really need to concentrate.
All right. I'm all for you. I'm all for everything you're saying. What about this is about digital? This is stupid. We're talking about every single thing you learned in dental school. Tell me one thing about this you've said that has a dang thing to do with digital. Everything you're telling me is, where does 8 and 9 go? What's a lip support? Add wax, take away wax, do close to speaking space, figure out the VDO versus VDR, subtract 3 millimeters for close to speaking space, figure out 55, 66, church, cheese, all the same things, figure out the buccal corridor, and then get a bite registration in CR. What the heck are you talking about? What the heck are you talking about? Why does this have a dang thing to do with digital?
Yeah,
what are we doing digital that matters?
Let's demystify this for just a second, because everything that we're talking about is not digital. And that's the thing here that is so upsetting about this whole industry, and Brad is frustrated too, because it's not really painted in the light that really is correct. The digital aspect is the power of the knowledge of what the digital can give you. So for instance, let's say, first appointment, patient walks in. You got this technology, man, because you just bought it. And even if you didn't, okay, you got a patient sitting in the chair and they're like, yep, sign me up, I'm ready to do dentures. All right. And you're like, man, I'm going to do some digital dentures. But, you know, and you have the knowledge of some things, okay? You know some stuff. That's the thing. You got to have some base knowledge here, or this not going to work. Okay,
we've done dental school.
We've done
go to dental school.
No.
Go to dental school and graduate.
No. John,
What other knowledge do you need?
you need to understand treatment planning. You need to understand
What
treatment planning.
dentures, we learn all the treatment planning. Is there something we don't learn in dental school?
John,
is there something about denture treatment planning we don't learn in dental school? Because I'm challenging you because I don't think there is.
there's
There's lots of things about how you get an impression. There's lots of things about, whether you want to mill, print, set, cast, I mean, all that all those things. But like, is there anything about denture treatment? And Wes, I'm telling you, tell me if there's not.
Yes,
I really don't know if
there's so much confusion about the point A to point B and what's being taught in dental school that we forgot some of the stuff that we've known for over 100 years. I mean, for goodness sakes, one of the things that when I've done my research for the upcoming course, there's so many things that have been forgotten because there's so much pressure in the commercial world to get it done today and finish it tomorrow. And that just does not work. It really doesn't. It only works and when you close your eyes, like Brad has said, close your eyes and don't look at it. It's terrible what's coming into my office because people pay $250 to $500 for a digital denture down the street that was done overnight. Brad, the commercial industry has caused us to forget what we really have known. Right?
And that's why a lot of the doctors I told you earlier will say, I don't want to deal with dentures. We'll send them down to that commercial clinic downtown because I can't compete with their price. But yet the patients still end up back in your chair after they're disappointed with the end product.
The patients are really bearing the brunt of the confusion.
Correct.
And so, yes, we may have been taught some of the basics of dentures, but the basics is what allows us to branch off and use digital to its power. Let me give you an example of where digital wins. And where it wins is efficiency. Okay? Patient comes in. They have a current denture. The denture's worn. It's been 20 years. They like it. They want it. You've identified some things that need to be corrected about it. It's worn out. All right? Used to be that we had to use a duplication jig, and we have a thing called a Solera duplication kit. You can still buy it. It's an incredible tool that Brad, the dental lab guy, turned me on to, that allowed us to replace some of the old metal duplication jigs that were costly and hard to clean and all this. But Solera duplication kit allowed us to essentially copy for the lab to 100% accuracy and give us a master model and the ability for the lab to fabricate a replica and a jig for this patient's denture. Okay, all in one appointment. But that's stone, that's mixing powder, that's ratios, that's tons of variables. Now today, with scanning technology and with many of our intraoral scanners, we can actually scan someone's denture and send that to the lab digitally versus having to spend 45 minutes on one duplication jig and then overnighting it in wet towels and all these things because you don't have the lab. So we're gaining some efficiencies. That's where digital gains us. Some really things that are pretty special. On top of that, the same thing is I'm able to, with facial scanning, to put that same denture that I've copied digitally in someone's face and identify with speech, with video, with talking to the patient. I'm able to send that to the lab digitally with my iPhone or with my camera phone. I can just sit here and record how they're talking with their existing denture. That's digital dentures. You see, I'm giving information to the lab to help us set it diagnostically the correct way. Another thing, that same day, we can take everyone is taught how to use alginate. everyone. You don't even have to buy Accudent. I love Accudent. It's incredible. But you could, if with just the ability to take a good preliminary overextended impression in the patient's edentulous arch with edentulous trays, just doing that, we're all taught to do that in dental school. We know what a good denture impression should look like. Now, the lower's a little harder, and with some little bit of training, we can get to a decent result. I've recently sent 2 bad impressions to Brad so that we could identify the problems so that when I'm teaching, I can show what he's getting. He's got one in his lab. We're going to talk about it tomorrow on the phone. It's not ideal, but I want to show why it's not ideal. So we have to know how to take a good alginate. But here's an interesting thing. Imagine a lot of those alginate impressions are as good as final impressions. In some cases, if you get good at it, they're as good as finals. And imagine me being able to scan an alginate impression with accuracy enough. Our intraoral scanners are accurate enough to do full arch implant dentistry. Now, surely enough, they're good enough to scan an alginate for a denture that's removable. So I scan that instead of sending it to Brad. Now he has a digital model that he can print on his printer. He can digitally carve a post dam. He can digitally see where you've marked the incisive papilla because you used an indelible marker. He can see where you've marked the outline of the border because he's got color scans of your digital of your
all right,
analog
Hold
impression.
on. I got to interrupt you. Okay, I got it. Wes, you know that I love you. This is the sound of a master denture maker talking about things that are analog. And I know this. Like if I needed a denture, I would go to Wes Mullins. All right. So I just need you to know that this is not a matter of, I don't know. You don't know. I know you know it. I hear the things you're saying. I still need you to tell me. I get what you're saying. You can do. So somebody comes in with a denture worn out. You can duplicate it. So what? If it's worn out, you're going to increase the vertical anyway. So I get what you're saying. There's things we can do with digital, okay? But why do we need it? Other than that Brad can do rapid prototyping.
Yes.
By having a facial scanner, if you want to spend the money on it, okay? But why not 2D photography with a well-adjusted wax rim, well-adjusted? You said indelible marker. Watch out. You're talking about the crazy stuff. And then give me back an aesthetic try-in. You're still going to have to do it. You can't give me a final. So I'm still going to have to do aesthetic try-in. You can print it. You can wax it. I mean, I've heard of people 3D trying to fast prototype. If we're not moving past wax, why the heck are we talking about this?
Well,
Tell me
let me
why.
ask you this, John. What's your number one?
John, hang on. John,
Yeah.
John, do
Go
you
ahead,
still
go ahead,
drive
Brad.
a 1988 Chrysler LeBaron?
Now hold on. Now
John,
hold
I
on.
know
Now
what
don't
you're
you
driving.
start on that. Don't you start on
I
that
know
because
what
I've
you're
heard that
driving,
many
John.
times. People are like, all right, again, Wes just said he's making veneers with impressions. So don't you tell me that because we have it, we should use it. Because that's BS. Because there's no 3D model that's as good as an impression. So tell me why. Tell me what it is. I know the lab likes it, but tell me what is it about? What are you getting, Brad? What are you getting? What do you want us to give you?
I wouldn't say the lab likes it. I think there's a couple drivers behind this.
I would actually say right now, Brad, that the lab it doesn't like it because it hasn't seen the full ramifications of it clinically. You know,
yeah, I think you're right. You know, but I think we got there's other factors here that play in. You know, you have lab techs don't grow on trees anymore. All the lab schools are closing. So trained labor is one thing. So we're trying to figure out a way to use digital software printing. We haven't talked about the fabrication. I think to answer your direct question, John, I think digital really comes in just the fabrication of the product. That's where digital comes in. Either we're printing
So tell
or
me about
milling
that. I want to
the
understand
final
what's
product.
better.
So let me just finish at the labor side. So we got the labor side.
Yeah.
We'd already talked about, we got the push from the industry on the scanning side of things. Another factor is, every time a laboratory, and if you pay for your own shipping, or the lab does, but it's about $15 now, guys, to ship a case one way, right? So in dentures, think about how many times it goes back and forth. So if we could cut some of that out, it's just, there's some efficiency drivers. I just want to be said there, right? But the real thing, what you said, John, is it's the end result. It's the end result. Rather than taking teeth and setting them in wax, a digital denture is really, to me, the end result. We use digital software to design it, and we either use printing or milling, and those are the two ways right now to fabricate a denture. Two ways.
And so what's best?
Best,
or what's
I'll
the
tell you,
pros and cons? What's the pros and cons?
Let's go pros and cons. Let's just start printing, because there's a lot of doctors are buying their own printers right now, and everybody who buys them, they want to print everything right now. Just give me a file, I'll print it myself, right? Printing, you have to have supports every time you print, okay? And the way printing is right now with most of the printers is you print a pink base, and then you would print teeth. And that's the end result is really a PMMA, and they wear out really fast, but it's a two-piece denture and you elute it together. You have to have supports that have to finish off to do that when you're doing printing with most DOP type printers, right? We've selected to stay away from that right now because it has its warranted problems. How you position everything on the printer, you could have warpage in the base because you have to position it correctly, and how you position and how it's supported. You got all those supports you got to finish off. But the end result, I don't like printed teeth because they wear too fast. It's more of a PMMA. It's not a composite, right? So we stayed away from that just for that reason. Milling is where we've gone with permanent high impact dentures. So I'm talking high impact permanent dentures here. We decided to do this way. We mill our pink base. We can mill a puck out of a composite puck. It's not PMMA. Or there are companies like Vita, for instance. Vita has a carded tooth called Vionic. It's a composite tooth. And we have the library, so we can design that in the library, and then we mill the pink base, and then we can take carded teeth and we lute it into the pink base. That's our high impact denture. And to make it more aesthetic, then you have some products that you can paint on, composites, paint on to kind of give it the festooning look, the characterization, to really make it a high end looking. That's what we've decided to do. Just because milling has been proven, if you have good people that design your own strategies, you can really make a really pretty darn good fitting denture, right? So that's two paths.
So let's talk about the workflow of that, because I love it. This is interesting to me. Okay, so you go through the analog workflow of getting excellent impressioning, however you choose to do that, whether that's with AccuDent, whatever the choice is, right? So we get excellent impressioning. We know we have to do that analog. We've established that. So we come back with a base plate and bite rim, okay? And then we do the things we were taught in dental school, which I know is a stretch. And I'm saying that tongue in cheek, because unfortunately I'm the devil's advocate here, but the truth is I'm sad, because we should be able to figure this out, but we can't. So that's why Wes Mullins and I and people are existing to fill the void of just like, hey, what'd you learn in dental school? Here's a reminder. Unfortunately, it's very sad. But let's just say we get a great wax rim. All right, so we get it to you, Brad. Great wax rim. All right, great bite registration. Okay, great impression. All the good things. Let's just assume we have a good impression. And this is a huge if, because I want you to check out Wes Mullins' course. He's going to teach you to do all the things I just said. Because frankly, I think those are most important. Frankly, more important than the technology. But let's just say we get all the good information to you, Brad. You get a wax rim. Now, back in the day, we would get an aesthetic trying with teeth set in wax. Are you telling me that has changed? Are you telling me that from an excellent wax rim and good photography or facial scanning, because I feel like this is where we're going to diverge from the regular workflow. Tell us about how we diverge and how digital is different.
So we're taking those records and we digitize them then, or you can scan them in chairside and digitize them and send them to the lab. Either way, those records are digitized. We pull it into the software and we design the smile in the software. And we encourage 2-dimensional photos. 3-dimensional is way better. So we can design the smile in the face. Okay. Here's where it parts.
Gotcha.
We used to do wax with denture teeth in there as a try-in, and a doctor could put it in the mouth. They could adjust occlusion. You could adjust aesthetics, move teeth. In a digital world now, we're going to give you a monolithic denture. It's solid, monolithic of one piece. That's your try-in. So if you want to move teeth, you're going to take pictures, communicate back to the laboratory. We go back to the software. We digitally move the teeth, and we send you another digital try-in. You can't physically move them. You can grind on it to adjust occlusion, but you can't physically move teeth.
And I think that's where, people really start to kind of get like, oh my gosh, that doesn't work well. But I really want to disagree with them on that, because I think there are two camps here. The first thing is, if you are providing a proper wax rim and you have a laboratory that understands, now this is so key, like any part of this process, if one component, remember the doctor's knowledge is the third thing that Dr. Turberfield said that was the limiting factor to the success of dentures. 1 is the patient's expectations, 2 is occlusion, and 3 is the doctor's knowledge. And so what I would say is, like, if we give Brad knows that my crux in all of my entire, if he's ever heard me say anything, he was like, Wes, why is it that you don't do a lot of resets? It's because I spend time at the wax rim appointment. It's an hour. And so if I'm giving Brad a properly waxed rim with midlines, or even if I stuck a couple teeth in there that I had laying on the bench, whatever that is, I've spent time at the wax rim appointment. I mean, you could just
Wes, with digital now, the advantage we have now versus what we had before, Jon, is if I have the 2-dimensional photos or 3-dimensional images, I'm now doing the setup in the patient's face. That's crucial, because that's one thing I've never had before.
Incredible.
So it's a digital, it's a digital workflow that we can show you as the clinician. We can show the patient to sign off on it to make sure they like the aesthetics. So I think that's a level of understanding that we now have. So we're more comfortable providing a monolithic try-in because less adjustments are needed.
Brad, if you just take the law of averages in analog dentistry and you go off of certain anatomy, even if you did a crappy job with the wax rim, if you just go off of averages of where things need to be based off on the ridge, you're right probably 60% of the time on 8 and 9.
Well, here's what I'm gonna say, and I think this is such a great conversation. First of all, I just appreciate you. You all are at the top, and I'm saying this as friends, but also because I know what you know. You guys are at the top of your knowledge on these things. What I'm hearing, Brad, and I get it. What Wes just said makes me kind of sad, but I get it. The lab, as Wes just said, it's probably right by 60%, just based upon the photos that are sent. Like the lab, essentially, and what we're saying is, if you can give the lab a decent impression, and you can send the lab photos of the patient, you get a bike registration. That what we're saying is that through this digital process, what it's allowed you to do, Brad, is to essentially, you can correct for some of the things that you maybe didn't get perfectly through the photos, through the bite reg, and be able to set the teeth to be able to get closer to what, instead of no man's land.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you don't get a wax rim that has a midline marked, a canines marked, papillometer, allometer, nothing, right? So all you get is just, here's my impression. And if now we can take what we have with the ability to overlay the digital, the model, the face, whether it's 2D, 3D, now your technicians can say, okay, let's look at where 8 and 9 need to be based upon the ridge, based upon the face, based upon what the original denture was.
High smile, reposed.
Yeah, high smile, repose. Yeah. Let's see what changes we need to make to be able to create something that gets us something you can put in and look at. Because the truth is, people aren't moving the teeth when you send them a wax trim with teeth in it. Right.
Yeah,
they're not moving the teeth. They're not adjusting it because the wax trim kind of maybe sucked in the beginning, or maybe not always, but sometimes, or maybe often. So I'm getting this. I understand this. Like, I get it. And if you're listening to this and you're going, all right, so what's the use of this in the end? The use of this is, it makes me sad on one hand because I'm like, guys, ladies, we learned this in dental school. If you can give the lab a great impression and adjust the wax trim, go to somebody like what, it's sad, Wes. You know it's sad. I'm gonna lift you up again. You know how few people are teaching this?
Well,
a proper wax trim, a proper bite registration, a proper impression. I mean, I learned it from Joe Masad and Turbofil and all the same people. I caught them at the end of their career. Not a Sharifi's the only one I know.
Yeah,
and he's even out of it now because he's into airway. Yeah. There's not a lot of people teaching this anymore. So if you're not going to, and to be honest, most of us didn't learn great denture technique in dental school. We learned where 8 and 9 need to go, but we didn't learn great impression technique. We didn't see a lot of systems. So if you got to learn that though, Wes, like there's no replacement still. I mean, what are the most adjustments people have to do with dentures? I mean, I want to hear from both of you.
It's occlusion.
Okay, let's hear from both of you.
It really is. The number one adjustment.
Is it retention? Is it occlusion or retention?
No, because I think that every retention issues, most of the time, problems with sore spots and all that are due to occlusal issues. And occlusal harmony and how we set the teeth, it really plays a role in, especially the most modern techniques right now with, we know that lingualized occlusion, and I'll just say this from here on out, a proper lingualized occlusion has been proven right now, even for a class 1 occlusion, a class 2, a class 3, and even crossbite. You can do a lingualized occlusion and crossbite. It's a phenomenal technique. And we've been using it for so long. It's so good. 33-degree teeth in the top, like a 10 to 20-some degree tooth on the bottom. You get those cusps right in the right place coming down in there. It's a great thing. The minute that you don't capture a proper bite, lingualized occlusion is off. And now we've got sore spots, denture fit issues, things that you think were overextensions of your impression material. It's occlusion. Occlusion
so Brad,
is the key.
Let me hear from you, Brad.
Dentures.
Let me hear from you, Brad. So occlusion from Wes, and I agree it's a major issue. And Brad, what are you seeing when you hear from your doctors who are like, man, I'm struggling with this denture, I can't get it comfortable, or it's not working, or I need to reset teeth? Like, tell us some of the things. I understand we might not even talking about digital, but just talk about what are the things that you're seeing and what are you trying to solve with maybe a new workflow.
I would 100% agree. And I want to add to it, but occlusion definitely dictates a lot of problems. If it's not balanced occlusion, you're going to be creating sore spots because that denture is moving around where it shouldn't be because we don't have balanced occlusion. A caveat to that too, though, is if I don't have a good impression that shows me good muscle attachments, where the freedom is, if I don't have good extension and border molding on it, you're not going to get good suction to hold it in place. So not only occlusion, but due to a poor impression, you're going to have a poor fitting denture. So it's going to fit like a saddle on a cow, spoken from a Wisconsin boy. And the occlusion is just going to amplify the problem.
This has been great. I mean, I feel like in the end,
let me tell you what most dentists feel. And before you finish the show,
Yeah,
I want to describe your feeling. The day you started Denture, you never get an opportunity to really assess the fit until the very end. Now, that's the way that most people are doing dentures. And honestly, it's very interesting to me that even I have a certain amount of angst the day that you deliver your final denture. Because the greatest fear is that you put it in and it just drops down and it doesn't fit. It's embarrassing for you as a dentist and a clinician, and you feel failure. You haven't properly been able to evaluate really the fit up until this point. And this is the only prosthetic procedure that we do in dentistry where we don't put people in provisionals. And so I'm proposing that we look at different techniques on how we can evaluate fit. Brad and I have been discussing how we can help with digital technology and cost-effective ways to evaluate the fit of the denture base prior to moving to complete finishing of the prosthetic. And so there are ways and of things. Brad, you want to speak to the concern?
Yeah, I do, because this is a plug for digital already. Because if the old school workflow, we had a base plate and a bite rim that didn't fit, right? It was just something that went in. It wasn't processed. It wasn't a processed base. It wasn't, good fitting. So the old school, Wes, you're right. We didn't know until we processed the denture to see if it fit or not. In the digital workflow, Jon, we can literally, the try-in, the printed monolithic try-in I told you about that you can't move wax, that actually is the final fit. It's because you're printing it. So you are actually one step prior to, or closer to getting the fit of the denture today in today's workflow, right now with digital. What Wes is proposing is, can we actually print the base plate that would fit exactly like the final and back it up one more step closer so the base plate fits just like the denture was, so you can evaluate the quality of your impression at the base plate stage digitally. And that's what we're working that workflow out, so we can back that process up. Because if the base plate goes in and it fits like a saddle on a cow, right away you got to take a new impression.
Or reline that base plate.
Exactly.
Or border mold a new base plate.
Well, this is all going back to me when I hear you guys talk about it. And it's just, this is fun. This is a funny episode.
I love it.
It's all like it's an old people episode. And you guys are talking about digital.
Started with gray hair.
It started with gray hair. I'm a little frosty too, Brad.
Do y'all get some classes from Earl Pound ever?
Oh man, Earl Pound is who taught Dr. Turbyfield.
So branching technique. I know you understand, Wes.
Well, yeah.
I'm not preaching. I'm preaching to
Let's
the choir.
Not go into this because this is
all I'm gonna say. All I'm gonna say is Earl Pound in like this is 50s.
Yeah.
Was able to determine that a functional impression technique using a soft lining material tested out on the patient could produce the most accurate way of making a denture. So it was all about, like you all are saying, creating a denture using whether it's the patient's existing denture or whether it's a base plate or whether it's a new new denture. It's all about getting it to where you're using a functional impression technique. And then could we take digital and could we take that information that we create, whether it's through a well border molded custom impression, whether it's through a well border molded alginate, Wes, as you're doing, or whether it's through a custom tray, whatever the approach is, and we could say, now we got it, versus waiting till the end to see, as you all are talking about, is the fit right?
Mm-hmm.
And, the first time, as you said, Wes, when you deliver that denture, you're like, is it going to work? But if we have a functional impression, if we have something that is border molded and is functional, can we maybe create something that the patient puts in and you go, the thing I don't have to worry about is fit. And now my occlusion, maybe we're saying if we get good occlusion, and now we can actually, Brad, you at the lab can actually adjust aesthetics based on the imaging, which we never had before.
Yeah, see, here's
That's
the interesting
powerful.
thing, Brad, is and Brad knows this.
I think John's
'cause
getting excited about digital.
He
Did
is,
you hear that? I
because
think he's getting
get-
excited.
Well,
Now.
he's getting
We're at a
excited.
turning point
And
right now.
Let me just say this.
It's
John,
close.
is that
It's getting
here's
close.
The thing that you've not liked about modified branching technique is that it relies heavily on the lab to have specialized knowledge, and
True.
also, too, Brad knows that it takes some specialized techniques that are still very difficult. It's still very difficult to do modified branching technique and not be chairs in the office. And
You're
so
right.
what digital
Maintain the
allows
vertical,
us, yes,
etc.
it's incredible what modified branching technique does for us. Now we're getting into the high weeds here, but if we can take some things from digital and add it
Well, what I'm
back
going to say, if we go to like the brass tacks of this, if you are a dentist who has been struggling, let's just get down to it. If you're struggling with dentures and you want some help, right? Do you want some help for more predictability? I could see where a lab who understands digital workflow combined with a lab that understands how to get a good analog record. Those are two important things. Can then put those two together and say, all right, here's how to create a better analog record. And then here's how to take that and put it into digital, where they can help you to, at very least, remember what you learned, and say, here's what we can change. What do you think about this? And I think it's combination of both. I mean, Brad, don't you think there's a combination of both that you're able to help with here? You're able to help on the digital side with maybe a preview of what this could look like, or give the aesthetic, preview. But then also you've got to have the analog where you're getting good records so that you can give the dentist what they're actually asking for.
Or the patient deserves, But yes, it's a combo. You have to have both skill facets, and the digital's pushing things to new levels, and we're thinking differently. These old school techniques are relevant. They're proven, and it's how we take those and roll them into the digital side of things. And that's why I'd asked Wes, and I've been talking about this for a couple of years, that you guys said it. The old denture knowledge guys are retiring out, and we got to find, some teaching. So I asked Wes a couple of years ago, like, look, let's develop a class. Let's work out these digital workflows. Let's systematize them, and let's teach it. And so Wes is coming up, I think, at April 4th to the lab, and we're doing a course at the lab as kind of our kickoff course to do just this, to teach all the knowledge that we know right now from the old school guys to the new development of digital, and teach a workflow that works. And it's systematized.
I'm going to tell you guys right now, and ladies, and we haven't talked about this, and Wes, you just got to shut your mouth. You don't understand
Get the duct
value
tape
of
out.
this. You don't understand. If you're listening to this, whatever, some people will be like, oh, whatever, it's just dentures. You don't understand. Wes Mullins has aggregated information from generations of people who made dentures before implants existed, when the only thing we could do is to make the very best dentures for people who would say, imagine the person comes into your practice today, says, I have unlimited money. What are you doing? Implants, right? Back in the day, unlimited money, dentures. That was all we had. And these people were making dentures that, I swear to you, function better than anything I ever saw. And I've now learned from a few of these folks. And Wes, I'm telling you, like, I applaud you, because who knows, man? You may be that guy that people are like, wait a second. I heard Wes Mullins, he's doing this stuff. And Dental Crafters Network, this lab up north, they're like doing some stuff with dentures that might be kind of like, no one's ever done this before. I don't know of anyone else doing this. No one else is. And how many dentures, if you're listening to this, are you doing or facing, or removable partials? Even if it's close to this, you're dealing with tissue supported restorations. Even if it's overdentures, locator overdentures, it's all the same. And if you can take what we're getting from facial scanning, digital impression taking, analog impression taking and scanning. This is the best guy there is, Wes. There's no one else doing this, in my opinion, that's going to do it at a higher level than you. And I say that because I've seen all the people. I sat 6 months ago with Nader Sharifi out in San Antonio, who used to teach partials. He's like, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm done. I'm just going to do airway stuff. I'm not doing partials and dentures anymore. And I was like, who else doing it? He's like, Masad does it twice a year in Vegas, and that's it. We're done. No one wants to go sit through it. But I talked to my associate. He's like, I'm drowning. Oh, I'm drowning because I'm dealing with XYZ, and I'm helping him and helping him, But so many people need help. So that's my plug. We didn't talk about it before the show, but like, kudos to you all for figuring out this, taking advantage of what you have, and also like looking at what does the lab have? The fact you don't have 7,000 removable techs, and go, how can we make this work for the masses, but at a high level, and leverage the technology that we have? I mean, I'm not aware of anyone else doing it. So I think it's pretty awesome.
Brad? I'm not allowed to talk.
I'm excited about it, guys. I am excited about it. There's a lot of, it's not 100% proven when I say digital dentures. I think we cleared that out. That's really just a digital flare of an analog world. But if we're not pushing the limits, guys, we're not getting anywhere. So, we're going to continue to push it, and we'll get it figured out in the next year or two as the materials catch up and the machines catch up and the technology catches up.
The greatest thing about like what we're about to embark on here, and what knowledge that, Jon and myself and Brad have been gifted by other great people that are just amazing. I just sat here and can think about all the people that have influenced me over the years, right back to Dr. Galichi-Ba, who taught me in dental school, a prosthodontist. I just want to give a shout out to him. I'm sure he's passed away at this point, but God rest his soul. Taught me the turbofill technique and or pound technique, and it really is the same stuff, just spun with new material science and the ability to create efficiencies. And in the end, no matter what product you decide you want in the end, it's about, one, managing expectations with the patient, which we think we can do that earlier on now, okay? And number two, understanding occlusion in a better way and how to capture occlusion. And number three, upping your knowledge. And if you do those three things, Dr. Turbofield will say that you're going to love dentures. Now, that's the reason why I love dentures.
Well, and I think now, though, there's a fourth thing, which is if you're going to use the technology, you've got to have a lab that 100%. Understands what you can do and what's the limitations and what you need. And Brad, I feel like you all have been able to develop that more than I've ever seen. And as we maybe close out the show, just talk about, and I know we're going to do a shameless plug. I don't care. Here you are spending your time to come on here and talk about this. What's different about what you're doing? Why should people send their stuff to you based upon the conversation that we've just had? What's the importance of this understanding?
We hold our doctors accountable to give us what we do need. We're not afraid to call and push back to say, hey guys, we need this to maintain the quality. I train all my technicians to not necessarily serve the doctor, but serve the patient. The patient deserves the best quality possible. And in order to get that, we have to ask the doctors to give us what we need. So we communicate well with the doctors. We have an acronym, and maybe it's inappropriate for the pod show, but I'm going to say it anyways, because it's our core values. Each one of these, it's called DBAD at work. It's called DBAD. That's our acronym. And each, D stands for develop, and it's an acronym, right? And bottom line is, forgive me, but DBAD, don't be a dick, right? We don't want people to be a jerk. We don't want it to happen internally to our internal staff, and we don't treat our customers that way. So when we reach back and push back to the doctors, we do it professionally, but we hold the doctors accountable so we get what we need so we can give what the patient deserves.
100%.
And I think that sets us aside a little bit, because you got to hold people accountable. Not every doctor will send to dental crafters, which is okay. We want to deal with the people who have compassion and heart and want to do the right things for their patients. We're also always pushing technology. You guys both know I have 2 mechanical engineers. We're about to hire our 3rd mechanical engineer. We write a lot of our own strategies. We do a lot of our own development. We do a lot of our own testing. We deal with a lot of companies who ask us to test products. And I don't believe salespeople when they walk in and say this is the best in sliced bread, because we test it before we actually put it in front of our doctors and their patients. So I think those are a couple things that separate us a little bit. So.
Brad, we might as well just go ahead and say it. If you want to sign up for our course, how do people do that?
Call Dental Crafters Network, and we can sign you up for the course.
And so. I'm telling you guys, you guys can't talk about it as much as I can because y'all are involved, but this is a real deal. Like, I've been doing this long enough that I've been to these courses 15 to 20 years ago when these people were out and about. And I was lucky enough to see Earl Pound, lucky enough to see Masada a couple times, and Turbofil at the Hinman. I remember it. And so these are people y'all are teaching what we do, but you're taking it to a level of, what can we do digitally? How can we make things as efficient as possible, given the fact that you've got a lot of doctors and not as many techs as you once had. And I think it's pretty awesome to see the evolution of this. So if you're listening to this again, you're hearing this, you're thinking, all right, I know I learned a lot of this in school, but I'm struggling with dentures. I've heard about digital. I think, it's easy. Well, now hopefully you've learned it's not easy, but it could be easier than what you've been dealing with. And you have some advocates of people who are doing this, who have proven out the systems, seen what the technology can do, seen the limits, seen the advantages. And I think, Brad, once again, we always having you on, it always enlightens us. It gives us kind of an idea of what's possible, but also what's practical, what you're seeing daily, what you're seeing works, and what you're seeing is reality. And it's different than just Instagram and Facebook stupidity, where people are just showing some crazy case of what's possible, which might even not be possible. You're dealing with how many doctors you got, Brad? How many doctors send cases to you? An estimate. Hundreds?
I have hundreds. Yeah. Hundreds.
Yeah.
And
so you're honestly, dealing with all across the board.
Correct.
Yeah. So, this is real world. This is a lab that is dealing with real world. So we want you to go ahead. If you've been listening to this, you've appreciated what you've heard. I want you to go to our social media sites. I want you to like, share, and subscribe. I want you to share this with your colleagues, with your fellow clinicians, with your fellow lab technicians, with your fellow dental students. I want you to tell them why this made a difference to you. I want you to potentially, whether it's giving Dental Crafters a call or calling your lab and saying, hey, what are you guys doing with this? What are you doing with digital dentures? How can I make my dentures better? And it might be going back to the basics. It might be learning again what you already knew and making it better. Thanks once again for listening to the Dental Guys. We are so appreciative of every single listener. We're going to keep bringing you quality content. Stay tuned. For Jon, for Wes, for Brad, we are the Dental Guys.